only thing that we're interested in is putting money in your wallet. If you want to bet the fights, if you want to have a little bit of action, you are in the right place. With my partner, Ian Parker, I am Brett Okamoto.
We're ready to rock between our parlays, our props, our straight picks. It's time to make money. Let's go.
It is International Fight Week in Las Vegas. You're looking at the T-Mobile Arena, which will play host to UFC 290. But before we get to that, we are in the ESPN studios, which is right across the street from Caesars Palace. It is myself, Brett Okamoto, and my partner, as always, Ian Parker, in the beautiful ESPN studios, here for your UFC best bets. Welcome back into the show. Ian Parker, looking good here in person. I'm usually right over here in the studio. You are over in Florida. Yeah. I like having you here in person, buddy.
I appreciate that. I like being here with you as well. We got a great card. UFC 290, we've been waiting for this. International Fight Week. The vibe is there. I'm ready. Let's go.
I am also ready. Let's take a look at this main card that we're going to be discussing in detail. But before we do, we're going to be taking a quick look at the best bets recap from last week. Sean Strickland versus Magomedov. How did we do over there at the UFC Apex?
You know, I wanted to start it off the month hot going into 290. 5-1 best bets. We did just that. Sean Strickland made it look too easy. Roped open round one, came back, put Magomedov away in the second round. Griffin Morales fight to start round 3. That went bell to bell, as we said during the show. Bonfim St. Denis, that one was the one that shocked me the most. And I did say that line was wide. St. Denis was making it competitive. He won, we lost. Renat destroyed Kevin Lee. That was the easiest minus 200 I've ever had in my life. Carol Hosa by the skin of our teeth. And last but not least, the heavyweight over 1.5 was such a lock, 5-1. That was a good way to start July.
Yeah, it's always a nice way to, it's always nice to get that 5-1 record. Even nicer, though, when you're going into a big UFC pay-per-view, which we are doing right here in Las Vegas on Saturday, 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific on ESPN+. Alexander Volkanovski, arguably the best fighter on the planet of any weight class, taking on Yair Rodriguez, an interim champion with a lot of momentum coming in. Brandon Moreno, Alexandre Pantoja. I am freaking excited to see that fight. Robert Whittaker taking on Dracus du Plessis. Jalen Turner, Dan Hooker, Bo Nickel on the card. This is a stacked main card, man. There's no other way to say it. Awesome main card here for International Fight Week. And let's go ahead and start with the main event, as we always do. Volkanovski minus 370. Yair Rodriguez coming back at plus 290. Minus 370. This is higher than he was in any of those Max Holloway fights, which is not super surprising. I feel like maybe, though, odds makers sleeping a little bit on Yair. I mean, not too long ago, he was a plus 500 against Max Holloway. That turned out, even though Max did win that fight, it was very, very competitive. Are they sleeping at all on Yair, or is the price fair here?
I think the price actually does make sense. You're looking at someone, Yair Rodriguez, who is coming off a win against Josh Emmett, a weird win with Ortega and a loss to Emmett. Then you got Alexander, the great 5 title wins, the significant strike differential, the big strike slam, the straight wins. I mean, you're talking about, like you said, arguably the best fighter out of any weight class on the planet. Went against Islam Makhachev. Everyone said he's going to get out grappled, the strength, the size. He made it competitive. Some people thought he won. He's looking for that rematch. And, you know, this fight, Volkanovski is just such a tactician. He's so smart, high fight IQ. You know, I think he's great everywhere. I really don't see where Yair surprised him outside of maybe a body shot that might hurt him and steal a round. Otherwise, I think Volkanovski knows exactly what he needs to do. This is one of those fights where you're just, where does Volk lose? And everyone's going to say, oh, the striking, the distance. But Volk's seen this before. Mm-hmm. Is Yair a better striker than Max Holloway? I would say no. I would say different. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's just, what style is this that's going to confuse Volkanovski? I just don't see him losing this one. I think Yair is talented and he's fun to watch. Yep. But I think Volk's going to solve that puzzle.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, for me, a couple weeks ago, I said Ilia Topuria was just such a big favorite against Josh Emmett. And I said, man, I'm a big fan of Ilia Topuria, but I just can't take him at these odds. And then he went out and made it look absolutely easy. So this is kind of how I feel about this one. It's almost like a dog or pass situation for me, but it doesn't sound like it for you. It seems like you maybe want to take a little piece of action on Alex here.
You know, and for Volkanovski, you got to look at how does he win. Most of the time, outside of when he fought Zombie, I think he's won almost every other fight by decision. You know, Yair Rodriguez is a tough guy to finish. I mean, Holloway couldn't put him away. I know Frankie Edgar did a few years back, but this is a different Yair. For me, if I'm betting this fight, not, you know, obviously the odds, the favorites, it's kind of crazy. I'm going to go with Volkanovski to win by decision at plus 140. I'm actually shocked we're getting that good of a number. There are people that think he's going to finish the fight. You know, I think in this one, it's more about him winning. I think it's more important for him to cement that status back in this division since he took a fight away from it. And if he dominates over 5 rounds over Yair, you know what he's going to call for. He's going to call for the Islam rematch. Absolutely. And I think at that point, it's between him and Charles. Flip a coin.
Hey, real quick, what do you think the line is on Alexander Volkanovski versus Islam Makhachev 2?
Oh, man. I think Volk will be a plus 280. I'm going to go there. I still think you're going to get a hard, chalky number on Islam because he went out there, he did the work, he still dominated. He still was able to implement his plan. I think he just underestimated the power of Volkanovski, and I think next time it might be a little different, but I'm in for the rematch if it happens.
I'm in for the rematch as well, but first of all, he's got to beat Yair Rodriguez, and then, of course, Charles Oliveira.
Sure.
Have to see what the UFC wants to do there. All good options there for Islam Makhachev. Let's go to the co-main event. Brandon Moreno taking on Alexandre Pantoja, who he has lost to twice previously, and I got to say, for me, if I could only watch one fight on Saturday night, this is the one, man. I think this is going to be an absolute fire fight. Brandon Moreno, much different than he was 5 years ago when he lost to Pantoja for the second time, and the odds reflect that. Minus 210, Brandon Moreno to hang on to the 125-pound belt. What do you think about this line?
You know what? I think both fighters are different. Both have evolved. You know, the thing with Brandon Moreno is he's always been looked at as an underdog for whatever, you know, even in fights where he's the favorite, it's hard to picture him as nice as he is, as youthful as he looks, as this, like he calls himself the baby assassin, but he's so good everywhere. And in the fight against Figueiredo, that last fight, you know, ending that, you know, the quadrilogy by finish, it just really cemented him as one of the best to do it in this weight class. And he wants revenge on Pantoja. And, you know, I like what happened after that last fight where he beat Figgy. He said to Pantoja, "You're next, I promise," but Pantoja goes, "When?" You know, right after Moreno fought. You know, this is a really interesting fight. I'm going to go with the underdog here, though, in Pantoja.
Wow.
I'm going to roll the dice here. What I saw him do against Alex Perez, not that Perez is a world beater, okay? But Pantoja has always been, I'm going to take one to give one. He has a lot of power. He's got good cardio. We know he can go the distance. But that submission game, he's elite. And not that Moreno is not up there, but I think that there could be a situation where Pantoja could get on his back, get in the scramble, get in positions where he could steal rounds. He's got such power in his hands. He's got a good chin. You know, for Moreno, I think he has to fight the way he did against Kai Kara France. I think he has to work the body. But against Pantoja, he can get you down. And this is one of those fights where I don't think Moreno is going to have well, I know he's not going to have the grappling advantage here. This is going to be a real interesting one, but at these odds, I'm not even looking at the last two fights because they're both so different, but I'm going to go down the dog. I'm taking Pantoja.
Yeah, because you took the words out of my mouth. I was going to ask you if this is a pick because you like Pantoja or because you just really like the line here. And I also wonder, you know, this is a topic that we don't really talk about much on this show. If Pantoja goes out and wins a couple rounds and all of a sudden this line flips, would you take a look at maybe taking Moreno? Because I do feel like Moreno, the later rounds, will favor him a little bit. Like, how would you have an approach on live betting this fight?
Yeah, listen, if you guys follow me on Twitter, there are opportunities there where lives do happen. We talked about it with Sean Strickland last week. I said if he gets out of the first round, he'll be down a round, but you'll get good odds on him. Throw it all on Strickland at that point. Same thing with Moreno here. You know, listen, Pantoja can keep up a really good pace, but I don't think rounds 3, 4, or 5 he'll be able to keep putting his foot on the gas.
Yeah.
And Moreno then at that point can control the narrative. But this is why I think Pantoja can use that grappling. If he gets to the floor, he can slow it down, and then he can speed it back up. So this is going to be a fire fight, like you said. I think it's going to be who makes the first mistake, and we may see a new champ.
I can just see a situation in which if you take Pantoja plus 175, maybe you can get Brandon Moreno plus money at some point in the fight, and then all of a sudden you got two plus money bets there. Let's go to a big middleweight fight here. Robert Whittaker taking on Dricus du Plessis, which is very fun to say. Robert Whittaker ranked number 2 there, the former champion. If he wins this fight, and the same can be said for du Plessis, I think they're going to be saying, hey, do you want to fight Izzy in September in Sydney? I think the winner is going to say yes, depending, of course, on how the fight goes, how beat up they are. And odds makers think it's going to be a pretty easy one for Robert Whittaker. And quite frankly, a lot of the other middleweights have said this as well. They think it's going to be a bit of a squash match. Not a lot of faith in du Plessis. Do you have any faith in du Plessis, Ian Parker?
Listen, I think the guy's a good athlete. I think he's tough. I think he's got power. But he's fighting arguably the next best in the division, where Whittaker is just, I don't see any holes in his game. You know, for du Plessis, what we've seen against Brunson, what we saw against Darren Till was sloppy. You know, it was just very sloppy, and he's relying on his chin, his power. You know, he almost got finished by Brunson. He couldn't finish Till, then Till almost finished him, and then he got the sub, you know, finished Till. Against Whittaker, that's not going to happen. You know, if he doesn't put away Robert Whittaker in round 1, Whittaker is going to snipe him. He's going to take his time, punch him on the outside, and with volume and with just constant pressure, I think Whittaker gets this done inside the distance. I think this is going to be Whittaker's statement. Now, you brought up a good point. Can Whittaker win and come out clean and healthy? That I don't know. Whittaker's not been the most non-brittle fighter in those situations. So it wouldn't shock me if he won. And then, hot take, it could be Sean Strickland in the works if Whittaker can't go. And but then Whittaker could fight the winner of that at worst case. We'll see.
And I'm telling you, Izzy wouldn't mind that. But I just, if they're going to Sydney, it kind of feels like it should be Rob, not Sean Strickland. But I do know that Izzy would like some fresh blood, so maybe we'll see. A lot of different matchups, potential matchups coming off of this card in particular on all of these different weight classes. Let's go to the lightweight division. It's Dan Hooker taking on Jalen Turner, who did miss weight by 2 pounds today. That does not change the fact that he is a pretty significant favorite over Dan Hooker. What do you think here?
You know what? The weight miss does not bother me one bit. This guy's been training with Hamzat Chimaev. I think he's a dark horse in the division. He's got good striking. He's got good ground skills. We saw it against Mateusz Gamrot. He's got good takedown defense for the most part. You know, with Hooker, he's just taken so many damage, a lot of losses in the first round. By finish, I think, listen, we're getting a good number on Turner just to get it done within the 3 rounds. I see him rocking him, getting on his back, and doing a rear naked choke, finishing it that way. But let's go into the distance at -185.
Oh, I just don't know if my heart can take another bad night for Dan Hooker, man. But we will see. That is the official pick for me. And then Bo Nickel, he's coming in as the biggest betting favorite in UFC history. What do you do with this?
We're taking Val Woodburn, just kidding. You know, listen, I think Woodburn here has an opportunity to shock the world. If he can, I mean, he's not stuffing a takedown, he can land something. But look, Bo Nickel to win by submission in round 1 is -200. That's the best I could get, and that is what I'm going to go with. I think Nickel's going to take him down right away, not even risk taking a shot from this kid who is a powerhouse, and do what he does best. This is not unfamiliar territory from Bo. Being dominant in wrestling all those years, everyone was a big underdog. This will be no different. He'll get it done.
Yeah, it just feels like the Nickel to win in round 1. It just feels like if and when it happens, you're like, that should have felt so obvious. Let's talk about Robbie Lawler, man. This is his retirement fight. 25 fights, including the one on Saturday against Nico Price at UFC 290. 21 years since he made that UFC debut. This man, dude, one of my favorite stories that I've ever been told, period, in this sport, is his old manager, Monty Cox, saying that he was setting up these bar fights in Iowa, and that Robbie Lawler would go out there and he'd start off the night, and that Robbie would knock out his opponent so badly that the rest of the guys that they had just pulled from the bar to fight were like, I don't want to do this anymore, and be like, Monty would be like, Robbie, you were literally ruining my events here. It's his final one, and he's an underdog here against Nico Price. Price is -225. What do you think of this one?
You know what? I think Lawler's getting a little disrespected here on this number. You know, Nico Price lost his last fight to Rowe, where he got finished, and Robbie looked good against Brian Barberina until I guess he gassed himself out and then he got caught. I think this fight's going to go into round 3. I like over 2.5. You could also get a number if the fight starts round 3 at plus odds. I don't think Robbie's getting finished in his retirement fight. Yeah. I think him and Nico are going to go toe-to-toe. Yeah. I think the first round, I think Nico's also going to be a little weary of the power of Robbie Lawler. Yeah. You know, Robbie's been training. I've heard from a lot of people. He looks great. It's hard to think that he's washed and he's just going to get finished by Nico. Nico's been finished also, so I'm very curious, but I think this fight's going to go deeper than people think.
Yeah, I don't mind that one at all, and I think actually, in a weird way, Nico, because of his high level of respect for Robbie, is it maybe he won't put on the gas
like the Cowboy fight,
like he would against somebody else. Yeah. So I do like the overpick, especially at plus 145. Let's go to the prelim picks. In addition to this awesome main card, we do have some prelims here. Ian, take it away. Give us your picks for the prelims of UFC 290.
You know, look, Yasmin Urigaray is -3 and change, and Gomes is a tough fighter. I'm going over 2.5 here. Jimmy Crute and Alonzo Mendenfield, we're getting a rematch there. I do like Crute here. I think this time it's like, listen, we know Mendenfield's tough, power. I got the grappling game. Let's go. Tatsuro Taira under 1.5. I think he gets the submission win here. Vitor Petrino at -240. It's a little high for me. If you want to take him inside the distance, you might get a better number. Cameron Simon by TKO KO. I'm shocked. His opponent, Brett, his last 4 opponents have a combined record of like 3-12. So I don't know how he's going to do against Simon, who's very tough. I think he gets it done. I'm going to go Aguilar. I'm going to go Ribovics here. Esteban, we saw him in his last fight. Very tough. I just don't like Kirk's low output volume. And I think that's where Esteban takes over.
All right, so this card does have a few huge favorites. It has some competitive fights as well. It's going to be interesting to see where you go with your parlay here. What are we doing for Parker?
You know what? I didn't go as chalky as normal because there were so many -1100s that the value just wasn't there. So we're going to go Volk, Whittaker, Turner, and Simon. We're still going to get almost at plus 200, plus 157. I'm very confident in all 4 of those fights. I want to cash the parlay this week. I missed last week. I'm due for one.
Yep, definitely want to cash the parlay, plus 157. How about the best bets for Saturday?
I want to keep this train going. I'm going to take a shot at Pantoja at plus 175. You know, a lot of people may be like, Moreno is just so much better. I think Pantoja's style may cause some problems for him, so at that number, I like it. I'm going to go Whittaker -3.5, meaning sweep the cards. Win 30-27 over all 3, or win inside the distance. You get it there at -200. I'm going to go Jalen Turner inside the distance. Hooker, his last few fights where he lost, he was finishing the first round. Turner is a beast. Lawler Price to start round 3 at plus 110. As we mentioned before, you want to get a better number, go over 2.5. I'm going to take Jimmy Crute at -135, and we're going to go Esteban Ribovics at -150. I think that fight's the one starting the whole card.
Hey, this is fun every week, but in particular, this lineup of fights, you could have some fun with the long shot parlay. So let's have a little bit of fun.
It would be really, really nice to hit this one. That number is absurd right now. And you know what? I wanted to make it fun for International Fight Week. Pantoja by submission. Listen, him already winning may be a little greedy. I'm getting real greedy with the sub at plus 450. Turner by, I just realized this is all submission long shot parlay.
It is the submission theme parlay.
Turner by submission. Whittaker by submission and Crute by submission. Listen, throw $1 on that just for fun. Let's go.
Hey, or throw $10 on it because as you see, you win $8,580 if you put $10 on that. Submission parlay, we'll call it. That is it for UFC Best Bets for UFC 290. Thank you so much for joining us as always. 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific. The prelims are 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on ABC, ESPN, ESPN Plus. And come right back here. We're starting July hot. Let's keep it hot. Let's have a good month in July and just carry through all the way through 2023. Enjoy the fights. We'll see you next week.